Hi, Tony here. Now, it's all very well me telling you how to check that your helmet is fitted correctly, and although I have done quite a lot of helmet reviews, I am in no way an expert, far from it. So when I had an opportunity to have one here in the cave, I jumped at it. Joe Ross from Arai UK has very kindly joined me today to take us through the fitting process and give us some very helpful tips and advice along the way. But instead of just talking about it, Joe is actively going to fit a helmet for me, and it's a helmet that I've struggled to get a decent fit on for quite some time. So I'm hoping that I'm not going to be an awkward customer, but given that Joe fits these helmets for racers and customers alike, I'm sure he's going to have no problem in getting me a tip-top fit. Okay, so I guess, Joe, first thing is going to be a measurement?
Yes, absolutely. So the way that you fit a helmet is really important. The most important fitment on the helmet is around the crown of your head. So we measure across here, the widest part of your head. And that's because that's where the helmet must grip you. In the event of an accident, obviously that's where it's got to protect you. That's where the EPS liner has to work. So we measure you to get a rough idea of which shell size you're going to be. We get you to fit the shell, and then we can look at customized fitting after that. A lot of people think that cheeks is the most important fitment, and that's because it's the most kind of fitment that's there. This is the one you can feel the most. But it's really important that the crown fitment is 100%. We can change everything else. So first thing I do is measure your head.
Okay.
So what I do is I measure across the widest point, so literally forehead all the way around the back to the crown. So, and you measure at here about 61 centimeters.
Okay, and that doesn't need to be particularly tight. You're not looking for.
Yeah, I'm not looking to make it uber tight because it's just going to give us a false reading. What's really important is we work within the scope to make sure you're comfortable. And there's lots of feedback from you in a fitment as well. You're going to tell me how you feel as well.
Normally, I would go for a large as my first port of call for any helmet. If I'm wearing, and I'm not, and Joe might hit me for saying this, but if I'm wearing a showy helmet, I know that I can pick up a large, and by and large it's going to fit. It might need a bit of a tweak here and there, but generally the head shape and that actual size fits well. But it's interesting to get it measured independently, because when I've measured it, I've been closer to 60 or slightly under, and I was obviously putting too much pressure on the tape here, so this could be interesting. As an example, I have a large helmet. Now the Torx 4 is a helmet that I really love, but I have struggled with it in terms of fitment. If you haven't seen my review of this helmet, I'll put a link in the top corner of the screen for you to go away and have a look at it. But what I discovered, that I've always felt that it was just a little bit snug, the helmet. It did break in over time, but it still was one of those helmets that felt like it could potentially need to be a little bit bigger. It didn't really give me any pain. It didn't induce any headaches, but it just didn't feel the roomiest. So if I put this 60 on, which is what I would order if I was just looking online, based on the measurement that I've taken, you can see how it compares. This is where it gets difficult to hear me, but straight away the first problem I found is that the skull cap inside, when I pulled it on, are sort of pushed up inside a little bit because I don't necessarily have the space for it, and my chin is touching the chin bar. So Joe, what's going on here?
First thing I want to do is just do a visual check. So I'm looking at your face in the helmet. Your eyes, they're a little bit taller up in the aperture than I would necessarily want them. And also I know your nose is just a little bit higher than I would necessarily want this. So this gives you two things. If your eyes are in the center of the aperture, you're going to get a better view from the helmet. So when you check your shoulder, you're going to be able to see more on the road.
Okay,
really important.
Yeah.
Also for me, for being able to breathe as much as you can down onto the chin bar means you're going to get much less chance of fog. Yeah, that's exactly right. And when you pull your helmet around, it's really important to get that kind of feel.
Now just doing that, I can actually feel a bit more pressure up the top here.
Right, okay. Interesting. So that means we've got a worse situation, really. Perfect. So we need to check the shell around that crown part of your head. I want you to place your hands on the back of the helmet and push forward for me, as if to take up all that excess room. And I'm going to try and get a small portion of my finger underneath the skull cap on the helmet. Now I should be able to get basically a centimetre, 7mm, something like that, underneath the front of the helmet, and that's it. I shouldn't be able to get any more under there. But under this one, I actually can't get my finger really underneath the skull cap at all. I can only get just a tiny bit of my finger underneath the EPS liner, which would suggest to me that the helmet is too tight, really, and we need to look at a different shell size. So this is a large. Moving to the extra large, it gives us another shell size, so you will feel significant difference in the fitment.
Okay, let's give it a go.
Measuring gives us somewhere to begin, but it's not a be all and end all. What's really important is obviously working with the guy, with your customer, with the rider to be able to get the fitment right. So do you want to
call me a guy? That's fine.
do you want to pop that on for me, please?
I was the last time I checked. Okay, so instantly that feels roomier. Much more room. My chin's not touching in here. And I've got a pressure on my forehead that I can feel the padding, but I haven't got any undue pressure.
Okay, perfect. And I can see that the helmet actually looks like it fits you more comfortably. You know, you've got less kind of bulging and stuff like that. Yeah, so I feel happier for you in this shell immediately. Again, I need to check that crown fitment. Okay. So if you could just place your hands on the back of the helmet for me, please. Right. Now, I can get a small portion of my finger underneath the skull cap now, but probably a little bit too much for me want to be able to say, yeah, that's perfect. I think this is definitely the shell size for you. We definitely want to sort you with an extra large, but we want to be able to change the skull cap to give you a more snug fitment. I think you'll get a better use of the helmet overall. Yeah,
because the lining's going to break down to a certain extent over time anyway, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And it still has to be gripping you and comfortable, you know, but tight enough to be able to, so the helmet doesn't move around at all. Next thing I do is check the temples for pressure. Okay. So we've got no pressure around your temples, which means that the chance of getting a headache can be significantly reduced. You know, pressure on the temples can be quite severe. Now, with Arais, they grip you across your jawline using the facial contour system. So I can see that you haven't got the hands to cheeks, which is good, which is what we want to aim for. But I also can't tell if the helmet's gripping you very effectively. So what I want you to do is just move your jaw from side to side. Perfect. So the shell's moving on your head. So we're getting a level of grip from the cheek pads, which I would expect. How does it feel on the cheek pads?
These seem to support under the jawline as opposed to squishing the cheeks in.
Yeah, which is exactly right, which is what we want from Arai helmets. Would you like to try the helmet on with some thicker cheek pads to give you a bit more fit, just so you can compare it?
We can do that as a comparison, yeah, just to see what difference that makes.
Pop the helmet off, put some new interiors, and you can get a feel of the difference in the fitment.
We've now got the thicker lining and the thicker cheek pads. Let's just have a look to see how this compares. And this is where we find out if Joe's going to earn his money. So straight away for me, I've got a little bit more pressure in the cheeks, but not overly so. So it does feel nice and snug. I've got a nice fit under the jawline. And I can definitely feel the lining on the helmet now has got just a little bit more grip around the outside. So what now? Again, you do the same kind of checks.
Yeah, so first check that crown fitment, please. Thank you very much. Perfect. So I can literally get just my fingernails worth of finger underneath the skull cap. Nice strong grip. Can't get any excess up there. Perfect. Just going to check your temples. Yeah, again, we're talking about another shell size, so we've definitely not got any pressure around there. Your nose blowing down onto the chin bar, you're going to get a lot better fog removal from the helmet as well.
Yep.
And really good. You're just starting to get this, which for me, once those cheek pads have started to break in, you know, obviously they will reduce down in size a little bit. Sure. You're going to get that better fitment. Just check your, move your head from side to side. Minimal, absolutely minimal. There's no kind of gaps being created. No, so for me, this looks like, you know, my opinion, looks like a really good fitment on you. If you then wanted to tweak any little bits, if you said, oh, Joe, I actually prefer the cheek pads a little bit tighter, no problems. Or if you want them a touch looser, we can take those strip pads away, go in between. Entirely up to you. One
of the important things about having a helmet professionally fitted, now I'm lucky that Joe's agreed to come down here and do this here in my studio or garage, but that's why, you know, I do a lot of helmet reviews, and I do have affiliate links, and people go and buy helmets online, which is fine if you know exactly, if it's a brand you've used before and you know that it fits and you know that it's going to be there. But for the first time in a new brand, you know, for me taking my own measurement, I probably never would have gone to an XL. I'd have continued to squeeze a large on, maybe put a thinner liner in it and think that's where I need to be. But obviously Joe's proved that actually that's not the case, and I probably would have been suffering in a helmet that was maybe a little bit too tight, when just a little bit of work will change that for you. So definitely go to your local dealer and get it checked out and get it fitted. Now, one of the questions I get asked a lot on the channel is how noisy is a particular helmet when I review it, and that's very subjective. As I've said before, it depends on what bike you're riding, it depends to a certain extent on what clothing you're wearing, but the most important way of reducing noise is having a helmet that fits properly. Now, it's not only the noise where a proper fit makes a difference, obviously it's safety as well. So the better that a helmet fits, I'm guessing the better it is at doing the job that it should be doing.
Yeah, you've got two elements for me here in terms of the safety and why the fitment is important for the safety.
Okay.
The first one is the active safety. So active safety is how the helmet functions in a crash effectively. If you've got a helmet that's too big, obviously you've got a chance of it coming away from your head in some kind of a way, or probably much more likely is that the EPS liner will sit away from your skull and you actually have like an impact against the EPS liner almost to a degree. So fitment's really important to get that active safety. That's why we buy a helmet, and it must be right. But also you've got your passive safety. Passive safety is how the helmet functions the rest of the time. When you're using your helmet out on your bike, you're not actually in a crash, but if the helmet isn't comfortable, if it's uncomfortable, if it's too tight or too loose, if it's noisy, whatever, you're more likely to have an accident. Because you know,
it's distracting. It's going to affect your concentration.
Exactly.
Okay,
So being too tight is absolutely going to affect the performance and the safety of the helmet.
Okay,
you know,
that makes sense.
Getting it as I like to say, as comfortably tight as you can get away with. That's what I like to say about the helmet. If you have a nice secure fit on your head, you will get less noise. You'll get less echoing of that noise around the shell. You know, particularly if you go. I often see a lot of customers go down a shell size to get the right fitment. Well, you're going to have much less mass around your head, catching into the wind, etc. All counts as, you know, adds into that noise thing, into that safety thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess another one of the things, obviously, what I've talked about in other Arai videos is the shape and the glancing off, and that, you know, an attempt to change the rotational forces in a crash. And I presume that's going to be exacerbated. So if the helmet's a little bit too big and you do have a spill, there is a chance that it is that natural rotation on your head because it's too big. Is going to create problems. Yeah,
you've got a greater mass to touch into the floor. You know, you've got a larger profile of the actual shell. So definitely it all adds into the whole, philosophy of safety, 100%.
Perfect. Thank you, Joe.
Oh, you're welcome.
So if you want a helmet to fit properly, then I hope the tips that Joe has given us will be useful. Even if it's not an Arai helmet that you're purchasing, if it's a good brand, and certainly generally the brands that you spend a bit more money on, they should have the capability to be able to change the linings and at least the cheek pads to different thicknesses to help you get a good fit. If you go to an authorised Arai dealer, then all of the staff in that store would have been trained by Arai representatives, quite possibly Joe, so they will ensure that they get the best fit that you can. Of course, if it's not an Arai helmet that you're purchasing, then the tips that Joe gave here are equally relevant to other makes. So just before I go, one last thing. If you like the video, hit the like button. That really helps with the algorithm, apparently. What I would like you to do, if you haven't already, is hit that subscribe button. My subscription numbers are starting to pick up now, and I'm pushing on to 30,000, which is absolutely fantastic. It's still a small channel, but I really do appreciate the support that I get from you guys, and I have a really good engaged following in the comments section as well, which is really good. So thanks for that, and all that leaves me to say is until next time, thanks for watching, take care, ride safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.